Well, YouTubers, it's St. Andrew's Day, November 30th here, 2013, and it's also the Ohio State-Michigan game day. And I've got this thing on the TV with the sound off, and I've got WBNS radio on, listening to the commentary, because you can listen to the commentary in real time more or less, and then you end up watching the plays maybe about 2.5, 3.5 seconds later, sometimes sped up so they can fit in all their ads here on the TV coverage of this game. And so I've been looking at this. I've got my computer standing in readiness here in case my son sends me an email here about this. I sent him an email a few minutes before the start of the game and just after Michigan scored here moments ago. And, basically, I asked him what do you think that did to the various pimping odds on all of this betting that goes on all these games. Although he doesn't bet on games, and I don't either. One of the guys who helped train me lamented the fact that after he'd come back from practicing in California and Las Vegas, that he found it very hard to get a bet down in this town, which meant Columbus, Ohio. He'd be in the locker room and try to call his bookie. Well, I'd suggested to Thomas that we might do a meteor time. We could do meteor time and while we watch this game together. I don't know whether he's at home or out with his buddies or over at his in-laws or what the heck. They did get home safely last night from Dayton, where they were all were over with Kelly's sister and her husband. And thank God they got home safe, indeed. So I think this saga will continue here over the course of the afternoon. So we'll see here. Well, it seems that after several scores, or a couple, 3 scores on each side, there's been some big fight here on the field. I have a feeling you're going to do this. Oh, they ejected somebody. Good. Good. Oh, good. They ejected 1 on each side. I would have probably ejected 2 or 3 on each side. Oh, there's another one thrown out. Oh, so they ejected 2 on one side and... Oh, Ohio State got 2 of them ejected, and then Michigan got... Oh, now this other guy's going to have a tantrum here from Ohio State. Go away. Go away. Good. No, he's going to kick something now. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's very wonderful. Well, it's all part of the Pimpaversity, isn't it? Oh, no, he's going out with fingers held up bilaterally. The middle finger, of course. Oh, what a splendid act for the... That really represents the Ohio State Pimpaversity very well, doesn't it? Well, that's just to be expected, isn't it? Under the new economic regime where, the actual substance of your thoughts and values don't matter. It's all just about the bucks now. Well, no pun intended. Ah. Well, I imagine their cars are out in the parking lot. They can rent a car. They can drive back to Columbus. It's only a 4-hour drive. They're talking about whether they can leave or not. This is, as John Cleese would say in one of the Fawlty Towers episodes, this is typical. This is the most college football I've watched all season, by the way. Actually, the most I've watched in 2 years. Oh, well, let's see who maintains his cool the most. This ascetic fellow from Ohio State or this greaser guy from Michigan. Well, it's halftime, and I've got the sound turned off on the TV. I've got the sound turned off on the radio, because I can't listen to these guys. I mean, it's bad enough on the TV because they're all just, they give you about 15 seconds, then you have 2 minutes of ads, and 15 seconds and 2 minutes of ads. But on the radio, even these guys, they now all talk so rapidly. I notice that I'm myself, and that's been pointed out to me, and I should take this to heart because I'm very embarrassed by the fact that this is a true critique of me. Even I am talking more rapidly than I normally would. These guys on the radio are talking like, well, this isn't sexist. They talk like chicks. Or they talk like chicks used to do. Well, they still do in some areas of the country. Well, most areas of the country now, since that culture's spread all over the place. Heck, probably most areas of the world, since our culture's imposed itself on other. I suppose not in the Muslim world. I wonder if the women in the burqas talk real fast. I wonder if that's their way of getting back at their men, because they won't let them drive, or go out on their own, or stuff like that. Well, it's halftime and it's tied at 21, and toward the end of this, I'll run through all the emails I sent to Thomas here detailing the game. But for now, I'm sitting here having a little bit of fun, reminiscing. Well, of course, the Ohio State-Michigan game was always a big deal for my dad. Well, Ohio State basketball was a big deal for my dad in 61, 62, 63, when Ohio State basketball teams were in national contention and indeed national champions one year. And that was that great Cincinnati-Ohio State rivalry. His doc advised him, he didn't obey the advice, but advised him to stop watching these basketball games on TV because he was afraid that my dad would die when he watched one of these games. Because this was before the era of effective antihypertensive drugs. Gosh, if he'd been born 2 years later, he could have gotten on some of these good drugs, but he didn't, so he died. Well, that was one reason he died. Genetics is another reason he died, because it's hard to beat those. I'm giving it my best shot. I've got a 3 out of 4, 6 out of 8 chance. We'll see. I imagine you'll see too if I keep doing this long enough. So, no, Ohio State, I remember in 68 when, which was the Michigan coaches, I can't remember the name of the guy's name that was the coach for Bo Schembechler came in, but that was this guy's last game, and Ohio State lost. No, Ohio State beat this guy like 50-something to 12. And my dad always had 4-season tickets, and he would take a rotating series of family members and friends, and I generally got to go to one of the games. And but I'd go up, they'd have a picnic lunch, and I'd listen to the game on the radio in the station wagon, or depending on what we drove, the Packard there before we got the station wagon. Of course, then in '69, Ohio State beat. Ohio State lost in '69 to Michigan 24-12. That was when I was in my freshman year at Ohio State, and that was a big deal. Then the next year, 1970, Ohio State beat Michigan 14-11. And a buddy of mine came up from Miami University, and we had seats next to each other in the student section. We didn't have seats next to each other, but we engineered it that way. And it was great fun, And spent the night. We went out and roamed around. That was when people could roam around on High Street and drink. Before we all had to be nanny stated into, only after 21. Yeah, let's hide everything away so that, people don't learn how to go out and be responsible. Ridiculous. Well, anyway, it's always been fun. And when we moved out here in 82, January 4th, 1982 is when we first lived here. That first November of the Michigan game and subsequent years until, relatively recently, actually. I'd take the heater out on the back porch, and I'd sit it right next to me on one of the benches or pews or church seats or something, and even in the snow, get your case of beer out there, and you put the TV out. You put like a little cover over the TV if it was snowing. Excuse me, and you'd just sit out there and watch the Ohio State Michigan game and drink, and the dogs would be out there and the heater was on, and you had this sometimes we'd have a little fire when we got one of these outdoor fireplaces going at the same time. It was really great. But I've become a bit of I've become a bit not so manly about that now. So I'm in here watching the various Pimpaversities play. They seem to be advertising some sort of elephant head here right now. Oh, one of the other commentators is laughing and clapping, promoting a game that's going to take place after this. It's like a continual rush to satisfy. It's interesting because there's just like this ever rushing onward, forward, head over heels, downhill cascade to try to fulfill the communicating of any given evanescent thought that runs into your head. Well, of course, here I am on YouTube. I guess, is that what I'm doing? I guess to a certain extent I am. I can't remember who said it, but there was some fellow many hundreds of years ago that said the unexamined life isn't worth living. I think that was Epictetus. It's one of the Stoics, I think. Well, one of those guys. So, all right, I'm going to shut up here for a while here until the second half starts. Time to change my battery. Paul just came home. Looks like he's got mail and he's got
4 hangers.
wooden hangers, it looks like. Wooden hangers are sort of neat. Well, the football game just ended, Paul.
Who won it?
Ohio State 42-41.
All right.
Well, I don't know about that. You know, in fact, I have a documentary thing here that I'm ready to review on a video blog. And yours some time to participate in this if you wish, or if not, you know, go out and drink beer and smoke on the porch or whatever. You know. So, but at least you got home safely. Thank the good Lord. Alrighty. Well, I'm going to cut off here now. Well, YouTubers, the game is over and Ohio State has won 42-41. I hate to dispel the suspense, and as you know, you will find out later. Paul got home, but I thought it would be worth it as an exercise to excuse me, to go through the 19 emails I sent to my son during the game. Now,
Jesus.
well, obviously my hope was that maybe he'd come up and watch the game with me. Well, that was not to be. And I thought, well, maybe we could do like a meteor time, during the game, sort of continually, commenting back and forth, and I can make a video, in snippets of that, but that was not to be. So basically what I was left with was watching the game on the ABC network with the sound turned off, because I can't stand either of these guys. Plus they cut out stuff, and they won't let you see stuff because they don't want to, make the NCAA unhappy and all that. And then listening to the guys on WBNS 1460 AM radio here in Columbus, which is a tool of the Columbus Dispatch, or was, maybe it's not anymore. The color guy there needs to basically have a rag stuff in his mouth, but their play-by-play guy is fairly reasonable, and they do it in real time. So you can listen to them, and then you can watch ABC if they decide to show you something and see the play, although they tend to speed it up a bit. So I'm going to violate my rule, but let's just participate in the emails I sent to my son during the game. Now I'm going to knock this dandruff off these lenses again. Okay. This was at 11:59 in the morning. Now one of these videos I sent you, was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So 1400. This is at 11:59. So, let's just go through the whole thing. Me to my son. I am just now getting ready to watch the game, with the sound off, of course, and the radio on. Perhaps I shall make some video relating to it. I think I shall call Ohio State the Pimpaversity. Here we are at 12:38 later on here. Now Ohio State has just scored, and Michigan got an illegal block call on the run back, which would have otherwise gone to the OSU 5. Brady Hoke, the Michigan coach, looks like a real greaser. He does. He's got these little curly, he's got all this grease in his hair. He looks like a greaser. He doesn't look like he's been beaten down and gotten gray hair yet, which, believe you me, if he's the Michigan coach for any length of time, he will be looking like shortly. Which is better? Enthusiastic, indulgent greaser, or ascetic, self-righteous pimp? I wonder who the ascetic, self-righteous pimp is. There have been a number of them at Ohio. Well, maybe not aesthetic. This current one's kind of aesthetic, and that's to his credit. But anyway, you make the call. All right. 3 minutes later, now Michigan has scored. Michigan, which brings back a memory of going up there and buying a ticket outside, or buying tickets, or, tickets meaning like in several years. Ticket 1 year, ticket another year, ticket another year. To go to the Ohio State Michigan game, or just games up there, period, because I had friends up there, or a friend that went up. Well, I had, friends up there. And you'd buy these tickets and you'd sit in the student section, and of course, once they found out you're from Ohio, they gave you just tons of grief. But well, it's fun. I mean, it's a game, and typically these guys would bring in a cooler, and every time Michigan make it first down, they'd drink a beer, and then they would say, "Me," I'm sorry, "me." I won't be able to sing tomorrow if I do that, will I? Me. I'm not going to be able to sing that way anyway. Michigan. Anyway, so they scored. That was at 12:41. Moving on. 12:45. Now Ohio State has scored. Our folks are marginally faster than Michigan's folks. And now 12:54. Now Michigan has scored. Their individuals seem to be a little more high jumpy as they run around than our individuals.
They kept staying tied.
13:03, 1:03. Oh, this was after this fight, which of course the network wasn't going to show us all the details of in slow motion. But 2 Ohio State players got ejected, 1 Michigan player got ejected. Oh, what a splendid ejection/fight scene. How wonderful. It almost makes one yearn for the Gordon Gee bird to try to explain this away. Oh, he'd be up there babbling away like mad. Now, at 13:37, 1:37, well, things seem to have becalmed a bit. I had to go to the can. Well, one does, doesn't it? But because the radio guys are talking even faster than chicks, my word, they sound like let's see, what's the proper term now? Transgendered young women from the Valley in California. But because the radio guys were talking even faster than chicks, said he talking very rapidly, which people pointed out to me, and that's sad too. I've lost the thread of the game. Still, 14:21, meaning 14 Ohio State, 21 Michigan, and 2 minutes to go in the half. A minute later, 1:38, and now this Miller fellow has scored, and the kick is good, so a tie at 21. I just got a telemarketing call. Low lives. Well, 14:01 p.m., which is a minute after the very first video I showed you, sort of in this sequence, the serious sequence. Just vlogged a bit, and the battery ran low. I believe I may try to do laundry after this, but perhaps not. I can tell you now, at 16:05, I think perhaps not. I reminisced. I'm feeling benign. Here we are at 14:14. They are now doing some unconscionably long ad break. They're now doing some unconscionably long ad break. Pimps and whores galore. A poem there, perhaps. Perhaps not as good as this Scottish Highlands thing. Shills and more shills. Are we at the State Fair Midway? I want to do a stimulant drug level on the color announcer. Oh, he's just high on life. 1422. It seems that one of the players, football players, is named Armani.
That's a shirt maker.
Well, it's a suit maker. It's some sort of Italian
Suit.
fashion house.
Yeah, I know.
It seems that one of the players is named Armani. One's mind reels at the thought processes of the parents or parent when that birth certificate was presented for them to fill in by the social worker, the omnipresent social worker hovering in the hospital. Now, there was a purported fumble, which Ohio State recovered, but it was a fumble. Much back and forth video about knees being down. I always thought a player should be deemed down when some big so-and-so is sitting on you and wailing on you, not when your knee has touched the ground. I've always felt down when I've fallen and hit my head. Give me a break about this knee touching the ground stuff. 3 minutes later, 14:25, I almost wrote, now another Ohio State touchdown. Now I'm typing this away on my computer to my son. I almost wrote douche down. That would have been speaking the truth. Douche down. Speaking the truth. And also in love. And peace on my part, but perhaps not received as such by my interlocutors. An Ohio State douche down. That might pretty much characterize most of the university's activities here lately and perhaps in the months and years to come. I like that. 1437. I just observed some friendly banter between an OSU and Michigan player. I guess the boys in Vegas have figured out how this game will end. Now, I'm reminded of a moment, and I really honestly don't know whether it was in 71 or 73 or 75. Because, that's when Ohio State plays in Ann Arbor on odd-numbered years. And this was a guy that called himself the flamboyant or flambadiddle or something, and he had a Lincoln with a license plate that said Flam 7. Excuse me. And so Ohio State was up there, and I was sitting in the Michigan section, as inevitably I was. Having to drink a beer or several during every Michigan first down, and here comes in this helicopter, hovering in, lands in a field outside Michigan Stadium, sometimes known as the Bear Pit or the Hole, and it doesn't look like that now. It looks like a luxury hotel up there on one side of it. Maybe Paul's Hotel could buy an interest in it and rent out rooms for the games. I mean, there's a business opportunity. You really need to talk to these guys about that, Paul. And so.
It'd be the VIP suite.
Well, these are all press. And,
they got them down here at OSU.
Yeah, well, yes, I know. Well, it's pimps galore, isn't it? So I'm reminded of a moment during and I can't remember which season it is, quite in all honesty, game in Ann Arbor, when toward the end of the game, a helicopter flew into the field outside the stadium, and it was clear that the OSU quarterback had, how shall we say, fluffed some plays. after cultivating a persona of the flamboyant fellow with which to be reckoned. He drove a Lincoln with license plates that said Flam 7. I remarked to the Michigan fans sitting around me, I'd bought a ticket from a student after driving up there on spec. You know, you go up there on pure speculation and see if you can buy a ticket to go to the game. Well, you did then. I don't know what you do now. That it seems the bag man from Vegas had arrived with a payoff. This reminds me of a story about a bag man arriving in a surgeon's lounge at a local hospital with delivery for a sign of a Cleveland mob fellow. Now, moving along fairly rapidly, there was a fellow who was a senior surgery resident at one of the, how shall we say, more pleasure-dromy hospitals now in Columbus, and who became a very prominent, well, surgeon later on in the Columbus medical scene. And he came from a mob family. He came from a mob family in Cleveland. And apparently after there had been a hit made on his dad, it seemed that in order to keep him from wanting to, you know, perform a hit on the people who had done the hit, he was to be bought off. And one day, in the surgeon's lounge at this hospital, there's this guy in there with, you know, I mean, it looks like something out of a bad movie, doesn't it? You know, this guy's in there. I have heard this from about 3 different people who were in the lounge at the time, so I'm not making this up. Although, there's obviously a certain amount of, how should we say, mythology that builds into this. And, you know, this guy just basically by his behavior and demeanor got in there and ascertained where the guy was, waited till he came in and dropped this bag full of cash. It was around $200,000+ in cash. Well, I don't think that had anything to do with this guy, you know, playing football for Ohio State at the time during that helicopter thing. That's just a joke among people who are drinking beer in stands. Let us not get in a tizzy about that. So here we are now at 1455. I want to show you Paul's response. He's, you know, scan the skies out there like you were doing, Paul, because see, Paul has the right idea about a lot of this. So, you know, 1455, well, Michigan just scored after Ohio State's defense was sitting off somewhere playing video games in their heads and phoning in their activities, both actual, quote, defense, unquote, and their individual intra-head activities. So here we are now at 311, you know, 1511. Michigan fumble recovery. Good. But it appears that they're going to ads rather than showing various replays to let us make up our own minds. Well, we wouldn't want to criticize the NCAA officials, would we? Thugs. The truth that dare not speak its name. Like being gay was in the early years of and late years of the 20th and 19th century. Sorry about doing that in reverse order. The truth that dare not speak its name is that unless you are an individual of, how shall we say, problematic background that comes from a more or less middle class background and how to behave it and know how to behave in mixed company, as opposed to only socializing with your fellow tattooed and deformed thugs, your role as a moneymaker for your Pimpaversity is just that, a usable and discardable role after you have done your, quote, task, unquote. Thank you. Now go away. Now the Spanish-speaking players coming up will have an easier path since they are at least more or less, well, more or less since the dominant culture in the United States. Even though they are perhaps not quite the same look as the dominant culture in the United States. And most of them make a big deal about being their particular look. Do you see how careful I am to try to avoid being perceived as a racist here, guys? I noticed that the Michigan jerseys have a quote M unquote above the name on the jersey. Now, I think this is so that the video game makers can more easily eliminate the player's name under this new series of court rulings that the NCAA, against the NCAA, they will be giving players who are overtly identified under their names a bit of the piece of the action. And then I say to Thomas, your dad, thinking away like mad. Look for this on the internet near you without the overt bigotry. And then, JSK. And you're worried about a little mom telephone video, which he sent me last night, which I can't talk about except that he sent me a telephone video. All right. I'm going to maybe recharge my camera. Here's Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hey, Joe.
Say hi, Paul.
Hi, guys.
It's like a marker. It's like one of those little slap down bars, that they do. The slap down bars, whack, whack, whack. Paul's my slap down bar. So we're at 15:16 now here on this series of emails to my son. Now essentially tied 35-34, but we shall see. And then the guy kicked the thing, and it's 35-35. Perhaps we shall see overtime. I do like college overtime rules, except I have to listen to more of the huckstery pimping. Golly, it's like being at work. I do think the college overtime rules are very reasonable. And then here we are, 15:37. Now a touchdown from Ohio State. I'm a bit surprised that they did not kick the field goal rather than for the touchdown. Then go for the touchdown. Well, they were close, but then they went for the touchdown, got the touchdown. They could have kicked the field goal. Isn't it? I mean, it was like they were like 3 yards out. I thought, well, they're going to kick a field goal or a yard out or something. Kick the field goal rather than try to go for the touchdown, but they went for the touchdown. They got it. The new pimpy regime would suggest that they go for the field goal because that's the monetary decision. Anything. Residual feel for rivalry would dictate the other course. I do keep forgetting that this Meyer fellow does have early connections to Ohio State. Now, Michigan is at their own 30 with 2 minutes to play. That's at 15:37 this afternoon. 3 minutes later, 15:30. Ohio State just made a relatively big defensive play. This has not been a big feature of the game today. That's true. I mean, it hasn't. This has not been a defensive game. I'll tell you, there's going to be a defensive game here at Michigan State when D'Antonio's team deals with us. Well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say us. I have no connection to these guys anymore. Deals with Ohio State. Now commercial. Not from me, but on the TV. And then we got 15 minutes later, we have 15:45. Now another timeout. Guys lurking off like rats into their holes. Now that was a bit before 15:45. Well, now Michigan close to the Ohio State goal, 15:33. That gives you a time. Touchdown. Ha! Take that, business pimps. Greaser says go for two. And now Ohio State calls a timeout. Probably get advice from their advertising folks. 15:35. In the instant, in the twinkling of an eye, that greaser is going to be very unhappy. I do not mean greaser's racist term. I love Italian people. I do, actually, frankly. I think I've probably had sex with some. Now the players are acting like folks that old quasi-ironic, but when push comes to shove, folks that care about this folks would like to see. Meaning, the players just started acting like, the game meant something to them. Which, of course, it didn't. It didn't. It's all about money. It's all about TV revenue. But they started acting like that. So, 42-41 Michigan. There it is. 15:38, and now I away to blog, vlog, and computer. God bless you wherever you are. And then, as you know, Paul came in just very, very, very shortly thereafter. So, well, we're all just children of God if we give it a good shot. All right, so here. Any thoughts, Paul?
No, I missed the last play because when I left the end, it was 42-35.
Yeah. And then the guy went, hey, he did 6 and then he went for 2. Oh, that's because he's trying to win. Yeah. Oh, duh. I put a dumbass thought on my thought. I thought, what? Okay. So, yes. Well, at least the man acted like a man. The greaser acted like a man. You gotta admire a man that acts like a man, even if he's a greaser.
So what? They missed the goal?
Oh yeah, he went for 2. I mean, and it didn't work. So. Well, no, he didn't kick. If he had kicked, it could have been tied. And then it could have gone to the overtime rules, which I would have liked to have seen that, but I don't know. Maybe the advertising people in New York said, we got to get this game ended up fast so that we can, go away without losing things. So, I know because, the consensus was that Michigan was going to be out of it. So, it might well be that the advertising people in New York basically dictated that call such that, it was very likely they wouldn't get the 2 points and win, such that then, so if it had tied with a kick, and it would have tied most likely with a kick, then that would have delayed the kinds of advertising that they wanted to do.
Sure.
Pimps. Not Paul. Just because I'm looking at Paul, that doesn't mean.
Plus, they don't like to overlap games.
Well, right? They don't want to have to because it messes up their advertising cohorts.
Yeah, because they hate to say already in progress.
Pimps.
That pisses them all off, especially
Pimps.
Vegas.
Pimps alike the world over.
Hey, welcome to Earth.
Well, welcome to the Western. Well, I suppose you could say welcome to welcome to the human behavior. Although you wonder about some of these folks out in the forests and things. They act in terms of a power structure because everybody acts in terms of a power structure by, most societies, like it or not, Pache Western world, are tribal societies. There's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, the problem with tribal societies is that when you try to interact with societies that aren't tribal societies or other tribal societies, is that you have a need, if you're in a tribal society, to feel you have to kill them. Well, I mean, I think you've watched enough of my materials to know that there's times that in my initial response in my head and heart, although I try to modify that by my Christian beliefs, but the initial response as an animal response is, notice I say animal response, yeah, I want to, deal with you. Well, that explains a lot of the stuff over there in the Middle East right now, and how, people here from the United States go over there and get killed, trying to make things better for these people, but, in reality, I mean, I don't know, we'll see. I hope these guys didn't die in vain, but we'll find out, won't we, in about 50, 60, 70, 150 years. Well, some people will find out in 150 years, I won't. I don't know, who knows? Maybe it'll become very Old Testament.
I think they need to handle the football in the American Football League shit like they do the rugby in Australia.
I'm sorry. I didn't know we were talking about football. Well, that's the same thing, though, anyway. So, anyway, I'm going to focus.
That's just my last thought.
Well, I hope it's not your last thought.
Well, it is for tonight.
Well, no, I hope it's not your last thought. My word.
Well, for doing the...
We all know that one or the other of us is going to bury one or the other of us. One morning, one or the other of us is going to walk in or walk out and find one or the other of us dead. And that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, that's the way it is. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't think it's going to be soon. I hope not soon.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, there's time. I'll tell you, there's times. Paul is so silent some mornings that I go in and I take the flashlight and I look to see if he's breathing. Sometimes I take a mirror, because he's so silent. Oh, other times you can hear him coughing and thrashing around all night. So it's hard to tell. I don't know what he thinks about me. He never says anything. He's an enigma vis-a-vis me.
Oh, sometimes I hear you coughing at night and stuff.
Well, no, I do. No, and then of course when I got up to read, I turned the light on, but I tried not to have the light come in and reflect into your place.
Yeah, it's kind of a switch off.
Well, yeah, it's always nice to know if either of us are alive. I think it's nice to know if you're alive. You could, I assume, maybe, I don't know how glad it makes you, but at least you do take note of whether I'm alive or not.
Yeah.
Talk to me, Zelna.
Now there's time, when you're having a good night's sleep, though, you're quiet and silent. You were very quiet last night.
Well, I did know, and I woke up after 5.5 hours straight sleep. I had this great dead sweat on, and my neck felt so sweated. My neck felt so heated up and not messed up. And then I woke up and I read about 30 pages of N.T. Wright.
I woke up 4:15.
Well, I heard you thrashing around. No, I knew you were having a bad night. I could tell.
My calves ache.
Well, I'm sure they were. You need to take some potassium on that. I mean, take some potassium tablets. I've tried to explain that, but okay.
What, one a day or?
No, hell's fire, you know, 12, 15, 20 milligrams a day. But, you know, but we can talk about that later. We don't need to take up the internet's time on this. Because, after all, we don't have a Pimpaversity, you know, maintaining behind. Well, you know, given that this is sort of like the annual Ohio State Michigan game thing, you know, thinking about my dad, all sorts of things cascading into my head, you know, with Paul and me, and now my computer, which is kind of like what used to be my dog. But maybe after the middle of December we may get a real dog. God bless us. I hope we do. We'll see. God bless you all, YouTubers. It's Advent tomorrow, the first Sunday in Advent. And I want you to all bear in mind that not only in Lent and not only in Advent, the Orthodox Church, which is the same Christian church that we all belong to, says Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia all the time, whether it's a season of penitence or not. And we need to remember that. We in the West need to internalize that. Absolutely. All right, so now I shall say bye-bye, YouTubers.